Hello, my little grandchildren that I love. Looks like it's time for another story about when I was a little boy. But I got a treat for you tonight because I'm going to tell you two stories. The first story is going to be a story about when I was an old grandpa. Have you seen my glasses anywhere? There they are. Well, when I was an old grandpa, I was out milking my cows last night under the moon, which was beautiful, and I was bringing my cows in to the milking parlor, and I heard this really cool sound. And it's an animal that I want you to see if you can guess what kind of an animal it was. So I'm going to play the sound for you, and you see if you can guess what it was. Are you ready? Go. Wasn't that great? Yeah, what do you think that was? A coyote? You're right. That was an old coyote last night, howling at the moon and singing for your old grandpa. Okay, that's that story, and now it's time for a story about when I was a little boy. Well, when I was a little frog, you're not a frog. What? Freddy the Frog, where'd you come from? Freddy the Frog. Okay. Freddy the Frog. Where did you come from? You said you were a little frog. You're not a little frog. You were a little boy. Oh, you're right. Sorry. Okay. Well, when I was a little boy, I used to like to climb trees. And when I was really little, there was only one tree that I could climb, and that was my mom's apple tree. And that apple tree was right in the middle of her garden. But one day I was next to the tree and I started to climb. And guess what? I made it all the way up to the first limb. Now, for a little boy that had never climbed a tree before, that was pretty scary. But I made it to the first limb and I looked over and there was this big old red apple. So I grabbed that apple and I ate it and the juices ran down my chin. It was so good. What a wonderful apple that was. But then I had another surprise. I looked up a little farther in the tree and I saw a bird's nest. Well, I was curious and I wanted to see what was in that bird's nest. But that meant I had to climb up even higher in the tree. So I got my courage up and I started climbing up one limb at a time and I went up and up and up until finally I could just peek over the top of the bird's nest. And I looked in, and do you know what I saw? I saw three, three little blue baby robin eggs. That was so exciting. Well, a few days later, I went back out and I climbed the apple tree again because I wanted to look in the nest to see those eggs again. I looked in the nest and there weren't any eggs. There were baby robins. Oh, they were so cute. Their little beaks were going like this because they'd open them really wide because they wanted to get a worm. but I didn't have any worms in my pocket. You didn't have any worms in your pocket? No worms in my pocket. So I climbed back down the tree and watched and watched and watched, and pretty soon here comes the mama robin, and she had this big fat worm in her mouth. And she came up and she used that worm to feed her little baby robins so they could grow and grow. And I watched them over a few weeks, and at the beginning they didn't even have any feathers. They just had this great big fat belly. But over time, they started getting little fuzzy little feathers, and then they pretty soon got their real feathers. And all of a sudden, one day, I climbed up and peeked in, and they were gone, because those baby robins had learned to fly. Well, that's a pretty good story. I think it's time for you, my little grandchildren that I love, to get your little buns in bed. So you go to bed so you can get up and go to school, and I'll see you next time. Love, Grandpa.